All right, it is 5 o'clock. We will go ahead and begin this meeting of the Kokomo City Board of Zoning Appeals. I would ask if you have a cell phone just to silence that, please, and then invite everyone to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, our first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the Tuesday, is that right? Tuesday, October 4th, oh yeah, October 4th, 2022 meeting.
October or September?
Oh, yeah, we didn't have an October
We didn't
meeting.
have October.
Yeah, that's not correct. It would have been September the
Okay.
6th.
Yeah, so approval of the minutes from the September 2022 meeting.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of September 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, our first case this evening is case P19-V-22.
Yes, petition of W.G. Leonard Construction requesting a variance of 24% to section 6.48E parking, variance of two parking spaces to section 6.48L, minimum parking retail, variance to waive section 6.72D foundation plantings, variance of 5 trees to section 6.27E foundation plantings, variance 11 trees to section 6.29F parking lot plantings, and variance to waive section 6.27FB 3 parking islands in a C2 zone. This is at 200 West, 180 South.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on this case?
I move that we approve case number 19-B-22 and adopt the findings of the petitioner as those of the board and make those findings part of the record.
Second.
All right, thank you both. Have any board members had any ex parte communication on this case? Nope. Okay. Could whoever's representing this case please step to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record and kind of tell us what it is you're wanting to do, what brings you here tonight?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Andrew Rosell with AR Engineering. We're representing W.J. Leonard Construction. Joe Leonard's here. In case we have any, we need to field any questions from the board. What we would like to request is, I believe you all have a site plan in your packet. If not, I have some extra copies.
This one here?
Yes. Yeah, this might, I don't know if you guys want a different copy, but I can kind of point to, I have a larger size site plan too, so this is on Dixon Road. If you're all familiar with the location, it's a vacant parcel right now. And what we're intending to do is put in a general retail store, 10,640 square foot general retail store. The ordinance requires 43 spaces. However, with the layout of the store, the parking, the drives in the lot, to meet that north buffer, we're requesting a reduction of 2 spaces. Just because of the layout of the parking and the landscaping required that we're trying to fit in there. The other variances are for the landscaping. There's quite a bit of landscaping required, and this is kind of a smaller retail store, so I think the intent of the ordinance is to, for the parking islands, to break up the parking areas where there's more than 15 spaces in a row. And as you can see, we have 12 spaces in the far front, 8 spaces across the front of the store, and then 13 along the side. So that's one of the variances, would be the interior islands. We kind of do have a couple interior islands at each end of that front row of parking. The kind of that goes along with that is the curbing of that parking lot island. And then the other variances requested are the foundation plantings along the building, and then the foundation planting strip, so the plantings and the strip along the building. Parking lot plantings within the islands, and then along the north side, if anybody's had the chance to visit, there's an existing residence there, and there is a significant buffer there now of evergreens. And so essentially what we'd be doing is screening ourselves from that evergreen row, but obviously we know that that trees don't last forever, but we do show a pretty extensive line of landscaping on the north line. What's required is 7 canopies and 14 evergreens, and we provide, although you see several trees along the north side, that's including the parking lot, the required parking lot trees, and the buffered yard. So we would be requesting a variance for 6 canopy trees and 5 evergreens along that north side. Other than that, I'd be happy to pass out some of these larger site plans if it helps to see the site plan, or we'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing that I missed. The first parking variance that we request is for the parking in the front yard. Your ordinance only allows 25% of the parking in the front yard, and I think the staff report spells that out pretty thoroughly. So we propose 20 spaces in the front yard, whereas if you take the 25% number of 41, that's only about 10 spaces. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board at this time? Okay, if there are no questions, would you go ahead and read your findings of fact for the record, please?
Sure. You want me to read the question too, or just the finding?
Yeah, you can do the statement leading into
Okay.
it.
Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The proposed retail store use will benefit the surrounding commercial and residential developments without being detrimental to the safety and welfare of the community. Allowing a reduction in parking will create more green space for landscaping and reduce stormwater runoff. And approving the alternate landscape plan provides screening for the residential district to the north and will provide a visually appealing site. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The proposed retail store is a permitted use within the C2 commercial district and meets the intent of the zoning ordinance for commercial uses within this area. Property values will not be affected substantially in an adverse manner. 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in a practical difficulty. This situation shall not be self-imposed nor be based on a perceived reduction or restriction of economic gain. Approving the variances allows the proposed use to function as intended and meets the intent of the zoning ordinance for commercial uses along the Dixon Road corridor. parcel size restricts the area needed to meet all the requirements for parking count and landscaping. The site plan was created to minimize the amount of variances needed.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead while we're on the findings and have Mr. Sheeline read the staff findings. And then
Yes.
we'll go back to questions from the board.
Okay, staff findings for case 19V22. The approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. While there are no safety hazards associated with the submitted plans, the size of the lot and building may create other hazards for shoppers, as we have seen in all the other Dollar Generals in Kokomo. Issues experienced in their other local stores include fire code violations, such as blocked aisles leading to entrapment of handicapped patrons. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The lack of landscaping proposed by the petitioner will not fit in with the aesthetic of the area. Nearby properties include a well-maintained church and stylish apartments. While the project would infill a currently vacant commercial lot, there is simply not enough room for the project on a lot this size. The strict application of the terms of this zoning ordinance will not result in a practical difficulty. This situation shall not be self-imposed or be based on a perceived reduction of or restriction of economic gain. There is no practical difficulty, as the petitioners have simply selected a lot that is too small to meet their needs. If the petitioner selected a larger, more suitable lot, they would not need variances at all. The staff does not support the requested variances for landscaping.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we've heard the petitioner's kind of explanation of what they're wanting to do, or at least behind their request for variances. We've heard the petitioner's findings of fact and the staff findings. Are there questions from the board at this time?
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Sheeline?
Mhm.
When you read that first, the staff finding, you said the approval will not be injurious. Here on the paper, it says it will be injurious, which,
I think you said will, it will be.
That will, yes, the approval will be injurious.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you said,
No,
when you read it, you said will not.
In question number 3, I said will not.
I know.
Yeah, okay. Well, if I said will not, I apologize.
Okay, well, I just wondered.
Okay.
I have a question for you. This is gonna be a Dollar General?
Yes, a similar like store to Dollar General. At this stage of the game, we're not at liberty to say, because if for some reason these variances don't go through and the project doesn't move forward, then the national tenant, it looks, everyone gets backlash from that, because if the community hears who it is, then they go to the national tenant. And so,
Okay, well, my question was, since there is a Dollar General just probably a mile north of there, I just wondered how practical it is to have them that close together.
yeah, and I can speak a little bit to this. I don't know if Joe would like to, but what happens is this national retailer that might have a store close by, they do a market study of how many rooftops they can serve. And so even if there's a store a mile or 2 away, then they're the ones that's driving this based on need. So it's not that we're proposing this site to them. They bring a site to the developer, and then they find the site as close to that point as possible. So it's all about the market and the rooftops.
I guess just to be clear, and that's really a business decision, so our decision needs to be based
Yeah.
upon the 3 factors. I guess my question is, one is first to the director, have we granted any variances in the past to landscaping requirements? I thought we were pretty stringent on those.
Well, I mean, we have given some variances to landscaping, but nothing of this size that comes to recent memory at all.
And I guess my question to you, sir, would be, how does that create a practical difficulty to the proposed use by installing the landscaping under the zoning requirements?
So similar to other areas, we base our, I guess, our proposed landscaping on what we do generally. So in communities that require more, then we ask for relief from that, because we feel that the landscaping that's provided out there is well beyond than what we typically do. And especially along the north side, because there already is a pretty significant established buffer across the north side. But based on, for example, like the parking lot islands, so if we were to install those parking lot islands, we would lose more spaces, therefore addressing some of the variances would then require the need for more variances. So that's in my statement that I said earlier, we, as part of the findings, we've looked at several different options to see what we can address to minimize those variances, if that makes sense.
Well, and if I may, our landscaping ordinance is stringent. It's not as stringent as some communities, but it is more than some. And we do that for a reason. The reason we do it is because we want to make our community look nicer. And I think that there is no practical difficulty here, as we said in our staff findings. I have nothing against Dollar General, but the size of the lot that they're trying to purchase to put this on is simply not big enough for that type of development to work within our ordinance. And while I am certainly, I've been doing this for 13 years, and I think I've demonstrated that I'm certainly always trying to work with developers and do development within the city, but our ordinance is there for a reason. And while we can give some small variance to certain things, I'm fine with that. But when it comes to variances of this magnitude, I simply cannot. I can't support it. It's just the bottom line.
So my follow-up question to that would be, based upon the building and the lot size, then I guess, can you try to explain to us how that wouldn't be self-imposed by picking that particular lot?
So this particular lot was already subdivided, so obviously we had parameters to work in. The 10,640 square foot building is a prototype building. So we can't just reduce the building size to say 10,000 square feet or 9,500 square feet. Like Walmart has their prototypes, or Tractor Supply, they all have their standard prototype stores that are basically cookie cutter, if you will. So they have their prototypes. So we're trying to fit that on there, and then to address, the parking and circulation, loading and unloading, then it's our job to figure out where the give and take is. And I respect the ordinance, and I understand what you're trying to do with that ordinance, and I think it's worked over the past decade, just seeing development around and how nice everything is. So it's in no means a disrespect to that, but we're trying to work with a prototype and the lot given. And honestly, 2 acres is a lot more than we as designers are normally given. Normally it's, like an acre and a half. So with public water and sewer, it helps with that. So we feel that this is an appropriate size parcel for this development.
But then the lot, the size of the building on the size of the lot results in these requirements, which can't be met typically because you can't shrink the size of the actual building, correct?
Correct.
And you mentioned some existing landscaping to the north, but that's not on this property, is that correct?
Correct. It appears to be on the neighbor's property. They have a pretty significant screen line all the way around their property. just to the north. But you're correct, it's not on this property, so that's a consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple comments here. The 25% parking in front, usually when we look at that, we try to work with the developer in moving the building around so it'll fit better, and that's when we look at that particular item, the 25% front. So it's kind of iffy. You know, I always harp on parking. I don't understand why we can't have the parking that we need. As far as the buffer goes, I might be all wet on this, but I harp on buffers and ask for buffers on every case. In my opinion, looking at this developer, I can't personally take in what the neighbor has there. That neighbor could move their buffer anytime they so desire. So if I'm gonna talk about a buffer, I have to, in my opinion, I have to look at what this developer is going to put on that lot.
Oh, right. And that's why I was asking, just to make that clear, because, I mean, I don't know if you were, I don't remember what case it was, how long ago it was, if you were on the board or not, but I remember, you know, someone was saying, well, our parking lot's gonna be pretty small, but there's a church across the street that has a parking lot that
Right.
they're only, and we said, but, you know, we can't look at what they have, we're looking at you, so.
And, yeah, there's just, we have looked at, giving a variance for, the parking lot islands before, but in every case I can remember, if we did that, that was the variance that we gave up so that everything else could meet. Long story short, there's too many variances here to make me comfortable. I just don't think it's fair to other developers to have to go to these standards, and this new develop on a new lot. It's a big ask for me. I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there certain, of the landscaping, requirements, is there certain ones, like the buffer you mentioned? We provide the buffer width, it's the plantings, so, you know, if that's one that the board feels strongly about, you know, we could definitely strike that one off the list and remove that. If there's certain ones that the board feels strongly about and versus other ones.
I guess where I'm coming from, being fortunate enough to be on this board for a number of years, and look at the past cases and the standards that we've asked other people to adhere to. Some of them I thought was a little overboard, but we talked and they did. I can't sit here and say, after all the other cases and asking all the other developers and people to adhere to these, and if you know, okay, we're short on parking, can we get rid of an island? That's common sense. I understand that. The way you're gonna lay out the building, we're gonna have more than 25% in the front of the building. It's better for, you know, traffic flow, you know, everything, if we get that variance for that. You know, those type of things. But when you throw all of them, I mean, it's just, I'm not comfortable with it. It's just too many variances.
Okay. I know in the past, I think the question came up if you've granted these variances before, and I know the parking in the front yard has been granted. Obviously with a retailer, they want their parking in the front. And then also the parking islands I know have been granted as well. So the landscaping, you know, that's something that we went through all the requirements and we picked a few of them off and withdrew those because we knew that we had to give somewhere. But you know, a lot of these that we asked for, there's like the foundation planting, that's a hard one because then you know, we've got to give someplace else, either parking area or you know, parking spaces. So I just ask that you consider that too, because if we eliminate one, it might create the need for another as well, like for parking lot islands, for example.
Well, I think that comes down to what someone up here has already said, I don't remember who, but in essence, well, it might have been in the staff findings as well, that, I mean, that's part of the issue when you say, well, we have to have the building this size, and we've chosen a lot this size. Well, sure, you know, if we give in one area, then yeah, we're gonna have to take somewhere else, because there are two things that can't give. We can't make that lot bigger, and you're saying the petitioner can't make that building smaller, so sure, if we move it this way, then that is gonna, I mean, I think probably any way we look at it, like Mr. Besser is saying, I mean, there are gonna be a lot of variances requested one way or another. Questions or comments from any other board members before I open it to the audience? Nope. Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard regarding this case? Mr. Sheeline, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I've said everything the way I feel about this, so, no, I'm good, thank you.
Andrew, I'm sorry, your last name? Rosell.
Yes.
Okay, anything you'd like to add before we?
I don't know, we would like to, I guess, work with you, and I don't know if it would help to go through each one of these, but obviously the two parking variance requests are critical for the project to move forward. The landscaping, you know, we could massage the layout, but the key is the parking in the front yard and those islands. Because if we install the islands, then it retracts some of the other parking spaces, so.
I guess the point I was trying to make, if you look at a case and you're close on parking or whatever, and you can do away with the islands to make up the difference on the parking, then you weigh that and you go, okay, that's an equal trade-off, or it's reasonable. Parking in front, as I said earlier, if that's the way, it's the best way for the building to be situated, and you have more than 25% of your parking in front, and you look at it, and that's the only variance you're looking at, it's reasonable. But when you're throwing parking spaces, 25% in front, buffer yard, reducing the trees, it's just a whole lot of, it's a large development on too small of a lot. It's just where I'm coming from, so.
And I realize that you gentlemen are working with a lot that you were given. You didn't go out and pick this lot. I understand that. You're working with a lot that you were given. But, you know, when you say that we could massage this a little bit, I was very upfront with everybody 6 weeks ago, and I told everybody 6 weeks ago that I would not support this. So to me, if we were going to massage it, we should have been doing that the last, you know, before you actually brought this to the board's attention. That's just my opinion.
And, I mean, not to disrespect that comment, but we have been working with staff quite a bit to manipulate this, and have revised this layout a couple times to try to meet that. Now, like I said, I think, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, we can address the landscaping other than the big three are the foundation strip, the parking in the front yard, and the parking islands. The rest is basically money and more plants. So we can address all those. It's just those three that are critical for this
Well,
project.
I guess that's my point. That those should have been addressed before, you know, if those were things that you know, when you look on a lot this size, if you look at a variance of 11 trees, that's a lot of trees. If you take away all the foundation plantings, that's a lot of foundation plantings. So if that's something that you didn't have to ask for the variance, if that's something you could have worked into the plan, then in my opinion, that's what you should have done to start with. That's my opinion. So to me, it's just, too many variances for this size of a lot for me to be comfortable with, period. So,
And to comment on that, obviously, we work with staff and they say we have to take it to the board to get direction.
I agree with that,
Right.
but, you know, myself and my staff told everyone that we weren't comfortable with this, that we would not support it. So my point is, if we could have massaged it, you know, you should have reached out and said, you know, we don't have to do 6 variances, we might be able to get by with 3, but that was never discussed. So with that being said, you know, I mean, we could talk about it all night, but the bottom line is you're before this board for 6 variances, and that's the bottom line, so. That's all I have to say, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we do have a motion and a second for the approval of case 19V22. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So, can I ask a question? So you just approve or deny all the variances or none of them?
So they're a package here, so they were all denied.
They were all
So you'd
denied.
have to repackage if you have another
Okay.
request.
We've never had that happen when you ask for variances, they're specific for each one.
With this board, you mean?
For any board that I've ever been to across Indiana or Michigan, they treat each variance as a separate item, not as a package deal.
I guess that's a question for the attorney.
We can look into it, but I think they were all denied based upon the request that was in front of us, the staff findings.
Our next item on the agenda, case P05-SE-22.
Yes, petitioner Steve Schrecken Gas requesting special exception per section 3.17 for a single-family dwelling in an M1 zone. This is section 5, lot 52. This is at 3238 Francis Lane.
Have a motion on this case.
Move that we approve case number P05-SC-22 and adopt the findings of petitioners, those of the board, and make those findings part of the record.
Second.
All right, thank you. Have any board members had any ex parte communication regarding this case? Nope. Okay. Whoever's representing this case, if you could step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and tell us what's going on.
Good afternoon, Heath Van Adder, 2709 Seattle Slough Lane, Kokomo, Indiana, 46901. And we are just wishing to build a single-family dwelling on a lot that's zoned M1. There's a very large 50-foot setback that it would be very difficult to build a duplex on that lot. And there's already precedents in that neighborhood. Directly across the street, there was a single-family dwelling built.
All right. Do you have a copy of your findings of fact there?
Yes.
We'll go ahead and read those into the record for us.
The proposal will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The special exception will allow a single-family home to be constructed on a lot zoned M1. A single-family residential home will not be injurious to the public as a duplex that is allowed. The requirements and development standards for the requested use as prescribed by this zoning ordinance will be met. The buildings meet the minimum requirements for front and side setback requirements on this zoning district. Current zoning allows for a 2-family home to be constructed on the lot. The 50-foot utility easement on the south side of the lot creates a difficult situation to place a duplex on the lot. This is the reason we desire to build a single home. The granting of the exception will not subvert the general purposes served by this zoning ordinance and will not permanently injure or injure other property or uses in the same district and vicinity. The exception will allow a single-family residential home on the lot in lieu of a two-family building. The lot across the street on Lot 46 has the same condition, and a single-family home was constructed. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district, therein the spirit and intent of this zoning ordinance and the Kokomo Comprehensive Plan. The proposed resident on Lot 52 is identical to the situation across the street at 3237 Francis Lane. We desire to replicate a single-family home as was allowed on Lot 46.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board at this point? Now we'll have the staff findings.
Yeah, staff findings for case PO 5-SE-22. The proposal will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. A single-family home would not be injurious to the surrounding community because the M1 zone is prescribed for larger and more dense development than the petitioner is requesting. The requirements and development standards for the requested use as prescribed by this zoning ordinance will be met. The buildings meet the minimum requirements for front and side setback requirements in the zoning district. The petitioner will meet all required development standards for a single-family residence. The new home will not encroach on any property lines or easements, although there are several large easements that have, excuse me, that's a little distracting, that have been made developing the lot difficult. The granting of the exception will not subvert the general purposes served by this zoning ordinance and will not permanently injure other property or uses in the same district and vicinity. The construction of this single-family dwelling will not injure or hinder the use of any neighboring properties. The requested use is a less intensive residential use than what is usually built within the M1 zone and should have little or no impact on neighbors. The infilling of this vacant and difficult to develop lot may increase property values for a positive effect on the surrounding area. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district therein, the spirit and intent of this zoning ordinance, and the Kokomo Comprehensive Plan. The proposed single-family dwelling fits with the spirit of the area and the intent of the zoning ordinance. The City of Kokomo Comprehensive Plan reserves this area for medium-density residential uses. The staff supports granting this special exception.
Okay, thank you. All right, having heard the petitioner's findings, the staff findings, any questions from the board? Anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second for the approval of case P05-SE-22. All those in favor?
You asked for public comment.
I'm sorry, anyone in the audience wishing to be heard? Sorry. I offended you, didn't I, by not asking? Doggone it. All right, we do have
Yes.
motion and second for the approval of case P05-SE-22. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other items to be brought before the board this evening?
I have no other business tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nothing further.
All right. We'll have a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all.